Well, first of all, how do you find a time to write all this music that I just mentioned?
Well, I can't remember. It's a bit of a blur.
How much of it does it overlap, the shows that you work on?
I mean, fortunately, it's never more than 3 at a time, and usually less. So I'm working on one right now, which is really nice.
Wow, a vacation for you.
It's kind of gentle, and it's I have some help. There's no way to do all of it, just by myself. So I have an assistant. There's some people that do a little additional composing, and on 911, I actually invited someone to be a co-composer with me, Todd Haberman, and so we split that show and do it together, and that makes it a little more kind of fun and manageable.
When you're working on multiple shows simultaneously, does do the music you compose for each start to influence each other? Do you find that way, or do you try to keep them all separate?
I do. I try to keep them separate. It's like I put these walls up in between the shows, starting with the sounds. So, most of these shows, they're not orchestral. So it's not like I'm, have an orchestral palette that you would share among different shows. There's all kinds of electronic and found sounds and different things. So it's kind of easy to just say, all right, here's the palette that I've created for one show, American Horror Story, and now I won't use any of those sounds in The Assassination of Gianni Versace. So it starts there, and then I'm just the intention is that I don't want to use the same kind of musical ideas, same kind of modality or chord progressions or melodies. And after all that, occasionally something will slip, something will bleed from one show to another. And fortunately,
do you let it happen, or do you try to fix it?
Well, I mean, maybe I don't notice, and then I send it in, and fortunately, it's a big team effort. There's picture editors and producers and Ryan. Everyone's, trying to get this ship launched. And they'll be like, "Hey, that cue is great, but it sounds a little familiar, like Horror Story." and I'm go, "Oh, right, okay, yeah."
Why is there circus music in here?
So, but it doesn't happen much. It happens, occasionally, and they steer me back in the right direction, and I'm grateful for that. And yeah, somehow they all sound a little different.
Mm-hmm. I want to talk about Assassination of Gianni Versace first. The show opens and it closes with your arrangement of Adagio in G minor, and I thought it was really fitting because it's this big orchestral funereal piece, and for this larger than life designer. So was that your idea? How did it all come about?
It came about one of Ryan's producers, Alexis Martin Woodall. She had been searching for something for the opening. Ryan wanted opera. Versace was a big opera fan, and but not opera with singing. So there's actually a word. There's actually a word for that. I should know. The opera without vocals. Does anyone know what that is? There's like a term.
Someone
for it.
Google it right now.
It's a blah 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 blah. Anyway, so she found that piece, and she played it for us, and it's a beautiful piece, and it certainly kind of worked, but it also was a little bit too languid in this version that they had, and it felt to me like we needed something that was going to pull the viewer in. This is the opening scene. It's this incredible 8-minute montage cutting back and forth between Versace and his soon-to-be killer, and it just needed to pull the viewer into the beginning of this story. And so I suggested that I could do a new arrangement of it, add a little motion to it, and they said, "Yeah, try it." So I did it, and they loved it. And I did a pretty good synth sample mock-up, and I thought that's what we were going with, because everybody loved it. And then sort of right at the last minute, it came down from above. There's something about it that's not quite there. I'm like, well, it's not real. It needs to be real. And so we went in with like a 34-piece string section, and recorded it.
Orchestra.
Yeah.
Wow. Interesting.
So
for the show in general, did Ryan give you any directives about how you want it to sound like? Because it's like compared to People versus O.J. Simpson, like that one was a lot more subtle, the music in there. But in Versace, it's a lot grander in certain ways, especially like the personal themes from some of the characters. So how did, or did he like give you any guidance for how to approach it?
He did, and just a side note that OJ was a lot more subtle, and we tried to do it more grand at first.
Oh, really?
And it didn't work. We went back and said, no, it needs to be more subtle. But there was a lot of discussions about the sound for Versace. It takes place. I mean, the murder took place in '97. A lot of the backstory is like in the decade before that. There were scenes in nightclubs. There was this creepy serial killer. There was Versace's love for opera. So all of that, when we latched onto the sound, I then started calling it if Giorgio Moroder was scoring Silence of the Lambs in an Italian villa.
And he won an Oscar for Flashdance, which also used Adagio in G minor.
And that ties it all
full
together.
Circle.
Yep.
Full circle, people.
Not many people know that.
Yeah.
So I didn't know that, but I like it.
Just pretend you did. It's okay.
Okay.
I want to talk about Andrew's theme in particular, because for most of it, it's like this piano-driven melody, but like it's also very creepy. And I mean, this is the extent of my music vernacular, but there's this like elongated like horn sound at some point, and it kind of like gives you this it like symbolizes like his like mindset, like this is like a twisted guy. So how did you create that sound or find that sound for his theme?
Well, for such a creepy sound, it ended up with a very sort of friendly nickname around post-production. Okay. It was just called the Seagull Sound, because it was kind of like this.
That's exactly what it sounds like.
This like thing. And I was hunting around and going through some different like weird sample libraries, and I just came across this. I can't even tell you what it is now, where it came from. And I put a bunch of reverb on it and just some pitch bend, and all of a sudden, like, okay, there's like Andrew's creepy mind,
It's like scratching. It's like something's like trying to get into his mind, and it works perfectly. So,
and it had different levels of intensity. It could be really just screaming and very creepy, and then a little more subtle, sort of in the background, just adding to like the melody. So it was a fun little texture to add. The seagull.
Yeah, there you go. Switching gears to American Horror Story Cult. I'm curious, how much did your personal feelings about the election and Trump influence your work?
I shouldn't curse. No, I will not curse. Well, I mean, if you've seen that opening sequence,
it's a very discordant score.
It's cutting back and forth between one group of people watching the election results and another person watching the election results, and they both have different feelings about them. And the characters that were upset about the results were very upset, and I felt exactly the same. You
also screamed like Sarah Paulson.
Disbelief, like this isn't really happening. This has got to be this some weird. I must have dropped acid. I mean, it was that painful. So it did hit me when I saw that. But ultimately the story's not really about that. I mean, it's part of the story, and it doesn't really take too much of a side politically. It's kind of poking fun at both sides as it goes through, and so it didn't. My personal feelings about the election did not really influence the music. It was more the first conversations were about, let's do something that makes us think of the government. let's do something governmental. And the very first thing that was done was this refresh of the opening title theme that they always do such a great job with, the creepy visuals and everything. And so I had written a melody a few seasons ago that was on top of that original theme, and they keep asking me now each season to redo it, but with a flavor for the current season. So this season, the idea was to do it with brass and to have this like creepy sort of Sousa marching band-esque feel on top of that really creepy American Horror Story main title. And that was the beginning of what the sound of the season would be. A lot of brass and military drums and but weird. Definitely weird.
I really love the Hive theme because it does have that kind of that like percussive element to it, and after a while it sounds like bees. So what was your inspiration for that?
Wow. Sometimes I should say something more sophisticated about it, but sometimes the inspiration is just that I have to turn it in tomorrow. Like that's
I have 2 other shows I'm working on right now.
or not even the other shows. It's just that like they call me up and they say, okay, we need this tomorrow. And so they're like, yeah, it should be more electronic than the other stuff, and maybe it could have some vocals. And so little synth pulse, and dig into some vocal sample libraries, and boom, there it was.
So I know they're starting production on season 8 this month. Have you heard anything about it? What have they told you?
They've told me nothing like personally. They've announced a couple of things. There was an FYC event, and Ryan dropped a few hints about it, about the cast members and whatnot. I actually received the first script today.
Did you read it?
And I haven't opened it. So you can't torture me to give you any information. I'm sure it doesn't have the name on it. Like that, they'll keep it under wraps. Like it'll just say like 8, and then the name will. Who knows how they'll go about releasing the name? But so I'm gonna read it tonight. I'm kind of excited.
Are you prepared to score for Joan Collins?
Wow, I hadn't really thought about that, but
the pressure's on.
Once I read the script and see what her character's about, maybe I'll start cooking up some ideas.
And I want to mention 911, which you're working with someone else.
Todd Haberman.
Todd.
Yeah.
I think it's the most mainstream of the shows you've worked on so far. I mean, because Scream Queens is still genre, but this is like a straight out procedural. So do you approach it any differently from, like Horror Story and, Feud and like all these other shows?
I mean, I think we did approach it a little differently. I mean, we knew that the music would be not as big a character as in some of the other shows. It would just be there to kind of propel things. There's a lot of action and procedural stuff like we expect, and so that the music sort of does its job. It has this other side though to it, which is they wanted a very emotional element, and so all these characters that are busy in all these procedures and rescues and all this stuff. Then when they're interacting, there's all these like very heartwarming moments. So there, the music was a little bit more upfront, and a lot of attention was paid to writing stuff that would just pull at the heartstrings.
Mm-hmm. I mean, like some of the cases on that show were just ridiculous. Like the pilot has a baby flushed down the toilet. There is a bouncy house that flies away, and like someone cuts up their date to like fix their heart. Like it's wild. So how, like when the story is that extreme, how do you balance meeting that level with your music, or trying to like undercut it a little bit, like, or do you want to play to that level, basically, like, or?
well, definitely a little bit. I mean, and I think that's what sets the show apart. I mean, that's like the Ryan Murphy-ism about it. That there was always something in these episodes that
it's a total Ryan Murphy show.
Yeah, like so it's the procedural with the heartfelt, but then this like these like weird, crazy, a lot of gross stuff too. A lot of like really, not like gore so much as just. I mean, there's the tapeworm scene. You know, it's pretty. But so yeah, in those moments, we got to take the music like a little bit further. Still couldn't go like American Horror Story. I think there was a couple of cues got sent in, and they were like, "Yeah, it's gone a little too far to Horror Story," but yeah, the music could go like a little bit more on those moments.
So, do you have any ideas for season 2 yet? Have they told you what crazy cases are in store?
They have not, but you know, apparently these crazy cases, most of them are based in reality. Like that's what. One of the producers was saying that he got most of the ideas for the scripts like on YouTube, like watching this like real things, the baby flushed down the toilet and the bouncy house and the tapeworm and all of this stuff is like actually happening.
It's just not out of Ryan Murphy's mind.